Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in 0 sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 568 of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup, coming at you. I'm Jason Evans. I'm joined by Donald Wine. Donald, it is literally like, maybe a half hour, not even, after the game ended. We are hopping on very quickly after this contest with Hofstra to recap it. This is not, by the way, folks, this is not going to be a full recap because, Donald, tell folks where you are now and tell them where you will be tomorrow.
Well, I just got back to my apartment. It was my godson's 5th birthday today. Happy birthday, Ethan. He got to watch the first half of the game before bedtime, so this was a good day. The Duke Blue Devils gave him a nice little victory.
Although the second half was more enjoyable.
The second half was more enjoyable. I don't know if there's a correlation with that of him going to bed and us doing well, but I will say that it was just that Duke needed to take care of business, and they did. But tomorrow, Jason, I think we're going to record a podcast together because I'm going to be in Atlanta. I'm going down to Atlanta for a U.S. soccer event, and I said, Jason, we should record tonight, and we should also record tomorrow in person. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is, the reason I brought this up at this moment is tomorrow we're going to hop on. We'll have more on this game because I'm sure there'll be more thoughts that'll digest and things like that. This may almost even end up being like a bite-sized episode of the DBR. We'll sort of see how it all pans out. But tomorrow we'll have more on this game. We'll chat more, just Donald and I hanging out together. We'll be sharing one microphone. It'll be very interesting.
You're going to hear a lot of drifting off because one of us is going to leave the mic and the other is going to step to the mic.
Exactly. So let's get right to the game, Donald. And we were going to start with the headlines, but I want to mention something about this game first, which is that in the preview, I had been, I'd been very nervous. Hofstra is a good team, and I really thought that Duke was going to be in a close game against them. I didn't think, like at halftime, this was a 5-point game. It was 44-39, and I didn't think that Duke was going to pull away the way they did in the second half. So I thought it was a tremendously impressive performance from the Blue Devils. That said, I'm going to get to the headlines. We're going to have more headlines tomorrow, but I'll get to a couple that came in really quick that I did really like. Mark Esselstein sent us this one. He said, point forward flip takes Duke on a ride to defeat the Pride. A little bit of rhyming in there. Some other words that just work nicely together. Point forward flip was the story of this game. No question about it. And then Ken Swanner had this one. Duke takes pride in its D. Donald, this Hofstra team is a club that averages better than 80 points per game. They only scored 68 against Duke. Duke Sports Information tells me after every single game that no one on the season yet has scored more points than they average when they play Duke. We hold everyone under their average scoring output. We definitely held Hofstra well under its average scoring output. Do you have a headline, or where do you want to start our conversation here?
I want to start. I don't know if this is the headline, but it kind of is, because this was riding on the back of a near Fliple Double, right? Near Fliple Double. Kyle Filipowski, we got to start with him. 28 points.
Wait, hold on. I hadn't thought. You were a genius, my friend. I had not thought of the Fliple Double. That's awesome.
I wish it was a Fliple Double, but it's a near Fliple Double. It's fun. It was also. We'll talk a little bit in the bad about how it was almost a quadruple double. But it didn't feel like that. But you got to start with Cal Filipowski. 28 points, 12 rebounds. 8 assists, one steal, 3 blocks, was all over the place. And here's the thing, Jason. Last couple games, he's been struggling a lot lately offensively. He's been doing his fair share when it comes to on the boards and on defense, but it felt like he was way more calm about being on the floor, both on offense, especially on offense, but on defense as well. He didn't feel like it felt more of the unflappable Kyle Filipowski that we saw so many times last year, where, if it wasn't such an outburst from beyond the 3-point arc for him and just like how he played, you would have said, oh, he had a ho-hum game because he was even keeled. Even when there was a couple things that didn't go his way, he didn't get out of character. He didn't get out of rhythm. He just stuck to his plan. And his plan was, first off, getting to the rack and getting buckets. Second off, he had a couple and ones. He made his free throws. We were very good from the free throw line, but also from beyond the arc, he took his shots and he made them. Like, was he perfect on the night? No, but he was 4 for 7 from 3.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a lot of threes for him to be taking in the game.
It's a lot of threes, but it felt like he was searching for his shot within the flow of the offense and being aggressive about getting his buckets. And I think that is the old Flip that we want every single game. That's what showed up tonight. And again, he filled the stats up with everything else, but on the offensive end, Flip was back.
So, Donald, one of the things that we were going to do tomorrow is you and I were going to talk about sort of, hey, maybe one big concept, one big thing that you've noticed on the season so far that you think is, worth noting now that we're, almost 10 games into it, that we're a month and a half or so into it. And my big thing, I told you already, was going to be that I felt like our sophomores hadn't advanced their games much from being freshmen. I'm going to talk more about it tomorrow because I still think it is something worth discussing. But what we saw tonight was a different Kyle Filipowski than we've ever seen before. I don't know how Hofstra could have prepared for this version of the Duke Blue Devils, because the way they passed the ball was completely different from what they've done all season long. The way they were running the offense through Kyle Filipowski, the way Flip was looking to pass the ball, is something different, not just from this season, but from his entire career. We've never seen this Kyle Filipowski before. And
he was making some dimes too. It wasn't like, fundamental finding the person. It was some dimes in those assists.
They were incredibly sweet passes. And I mean, when people talked about Kyle Filipowski elevating his stock to be a lottery pick, when people talked about Kyle Filipowski elevating his game to be an All-American, perhaps in the running for National Player of the Year, 28, 12, and 8 with 3 blocks, that's the Kyle Filipowski they were talking about. And I want to be clear, we're not going to get this Kyle every game. But boy, if we get this Kyle or something close to it occasionally, it elevates this Duke team in a huge way.
I'm glad you mentioned that last part, because I was going to say that Kyle Filipowski playing as well as he did tonight lifted everybody. I mean, when you look at some of the stat lines that people have, even again, he paced ourselves in points, he paced ourselves in rebounds, he paced our team in 3-pointers, right? He had made the most 3-pointers, but it permeated down. Even again, he made, we talked about Jared McCain as the guy that usually makes the first 3 of the game for us. It was Kyle Filipowski this time, but then Jared McCain came down and made a few of his own. Jeremy Roach made a few of his own. There was one play where it felt like everybody on the floor touched the ball, and it ended up in the hands of Jeremy Roach for a wide open 3-pointer. And as soon as he shot it, like everyone in the gym, it was one of those shots where everyone in the gym, including the announcers, I think were like, hey, we're talking about Jeremy Roach. Actually, you know what? Let's wait until after he makes the 3-pointer as he's shooting it and it goes in, because it was such a beautiful team play. That was all permeated by the fact that Kyle Filipowski was involved in the offense. He was being aggressive, but also working within the flow of the offense and getting other players involved. I think it was whatever transpired between Saturday and building into today, I think was brilliant, because the way that they came out as a team and played, it like they played some really quality team ball tonight.
Yo, I'm going to steal your favorite stat. 22 assists on 33 made baskets for a 67%, 66.6, whatever you want to call it. They assisted on 2/3 of their baskets, Donald. That's at a crazy, crazy number. And with Tyrese Proctor out, It fell to Flip and Jeremy Roach. Roach had 8 assists on this game. Those are just huge assist numbers to get from two guys who are not your point guard, who are guys who typically are looking to score for themselves. And in this game, Kyle Filipowski and Jeremy Roach were looking to facilitate other people. Oh, by the way, at the same time, they combined to get 47 points between the two of them, 28 from Kyle, 19 from Jeremy Roach. That's just for your two stars to put up that kind of point total and also have 16 assists. Come on, man. That's crazy stuff. And the other thing about Jeremy Roach I want to mention, because we're in the good right now, in the second half especially, I noticed this partially in the first half, but also a lot in the second half. We talked about the absolute stud guard that Hofstra had in Tyler Thomas. And I fully expected Caleb Foster to mostly get the assignment on him, but it turned out it was Jeremy Roach. I saw Jeremy Roach matched up on him again and again, and I saw Jeremy Roach working his tail off on defense against Tyler Thomas. Now, Tyler Thomas still got his. He got 18 points, but he averages almost 24.
But he also from three, he was only 2 for 5. And normally, like you mentioned in the preview, he's shooting more 3-pointers. He's attempting more 3-pointers. And he's making more.
He couldn't get it off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we forced them into 14 turnovers. This is a team that usually does not turn the ball over, that has really good ball handlers. And we were just hounding, especially in the second half. We absolutely hounded them. Look, they got 39 points in the first half, which is, we mentioned they're a team that scores 80 plus. That's right on their average. They only got 29 points in that second half. And they shot lights out in the first half. Their shooting wasn't nearly as good in the second. Duke turned up the defensive pressure. And to me, it started, look, Jalen Blake's was his usual great self, but it also started with Jeremy Roach on Tyler Thomas.
Yeah, I liked the defense that we had, especially on the perimeter. There was a point, Jason, where Jalen Blakes was playing the 4. My best friend pointed that out to me. It was
we're playing four little guards,
and Flip.
By the way, when they were doing that, there was a play where Roach tried to switch with Flip, and they left a guy wide open for a dunk. I was like, hey guys, we got to work on that communications a little bit.
Forget the communication. He looked up and was like, that guy's taller than me, because everyone on the floor is taller than me at this point. So I'm gonna just let him go. And that happens, right? You get those miscues. But I think what they did was they settled down as the first half went on and realized that, hey, Hofstra was making some circus shots. So like even in the first half, I didn't think the defense was that bad. It was that Hofstra was just making it felt like everything. Anything that they were shooting, they had a couple like fall away 3-pointers that were the guy like landed on the ground as he was shooting it and it still went in. You basically just tip your hat to him and say, hey, good play, and you keep going. But these guys stayed within themselves. And again, once they started to pull away in the second half, they never looked back.
Yeah. So look, we're going to we're trying to do this a little bit faster, get it out tonight, and we'll have more in-depth stuff tomorrow. But if we're still going ahead and doing the good, and there's a little bit more that I want to hit on here, you got to talk about Duke's just overall shooting on this game. We were 11 of 22 from 3, 12 of 14 from the free throw line, 85, almost 86% on our free throws. In the rebounds, I mean, crushed them 32 to 23. Hofstra only had 2 offensive rebounds. In the preview, I talked about the fact that Hofstra's not a team that gets a lot of offensive rebounds. They really did not get any offensive rebounds. Only 2 offensive rebounds is a startlingly low offensive rebound rate. I would have liked to have seen Duke get a few more offense. We only had 8 offensive rebounds. We only offensive rebounded 27% of our shots. And I would have liked to have seen that a little bit better. But for Duke to dominate on the boards, for Duke to shoot this well was just, a great sign for this team. And hat tip to Jared McCain, who I thought was the guy who, look, he was fighting on the boards like we've seen him do a lot. And, he pulled down four rebounds and, was draining those 3-pointers. When they left him open, he was making them pay, and he was still able to get in the lane a little bit and take those short runners, those short jumpers that I think are a very effective part of his game. I thought McCain was outstanding as well. 13 points on the game.
Yeah, I do too. And one guy I want to shout out, I know in the bad, we'll talk about like 3-point shooting, like his 3-point shooting, but Mark Mitchell, I thought in every other facet of the game, I thought he played very well tonight. And again, when we talk about the confidence that he may not have on his 3-point shooting, he has all the bit of confidence in getting down to the, within 3 feet and laying in or even dunking it. There was one play where he came down with the offensive rebound, and instead of laying it in, because the first time down the floor, he tried to lay it in, he laid it in, and he just couldn't get it over the guy. But the next time he came down, he just went straight up and dunked it. Like, it was, if you blinked, you would have missed him in the air. That's how quickly he got up to the rim. And I turned and I said, that is what we want from Mark Mitchell. We don't need him to shoot 3-pointers and make them. We don't need him to shoot, 5-foot bunnies inside the paint or try to lay it in high off the glass of someone. I want him to take it straight to the rack. And if he's underneath the basket, go straight up with it, because the worst case scenario, 9 times out of 10, I'm trusting Mark Mitchell to dunk it on somebody. If someone wants to go up with him, they can do so at their peril, because he's strong enough to force it in or at least get the foul call. And he did that a couple of times. But there was even one time where he got the ball on the rebound, casually dribbled down the floor, saw an opening, and just went ahead and went straight to the basket and laid it in. And everyone you saw the Red Sea part. And I like when Mark Mitchell does that. He doesn't need to give me any type of confidence builder by trying to shoot threes and making them. I want him to go to the rack. I want him to be, down in that 2-foot, 5-foot range. And I want him to be strong, because when he is, there's very few people in America that can match him.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get us to break here, because you're talking about Mark Mitchell. And unfortunately, my sort of response to what you were just saying is there's something about Mark Mitchell I need to talk about in the bad. And it's not necessarily what you were alluding to with the 3-point shot. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the bad. It's going to start with Mark Mitchell. I'm sorry, Mark. I love you, baby. It was a great game. But we're going to have that right after this. We are back from the break. And like I said, like I teased, I got something about Mark Mitchell's game that is bugging me. And that is, he is really struggling to score underneath the basket. When he dunks it, great. When he's taking a layup, on the run, he's got that down. But man, on these drives, on these offensive rebounds, if he can't get up to dunk it, he is there are a couple times he missed the rim completely, backboard, but no rim. And on a game where everybody, and I mean everybody on Duke shot well, by the way, everyone who attempted a shot for Duke shot better than 50% from the field, except for Mark Mitchell, who was just 5 of 16. Ouch. Mark was 5 of 16 in this game. And look, you can chalk up some of it to missing those 3-pointers, because he was 0 for 3 on 3-pointers. By the way, one of those, I swear he was building a new building. It was a massive brick. I don't think it ever got above the rim, and it caused harm to the rim when it hit it that hard. But for him to just be 5, he was 5 of 13 on 2-point field goals. And I swear, I haven't looked at the shot chart yet, but I think every single one of them was taken within 3 feet of the basket. You got to be better than 5 of 13 when you're that close, Mark.
I think there's a couple that he had that are 10-foot, 10-foot range, and it was whatever the defense was giving him. I think he had one where it was kind of from the side and it rimmed out. But I think the issue with Mark Mitchell is that in the effort to try and gain confidence with his shooting, he's shooting too many shots, right? He shouldn't be taking, you said he was 5 for 16. He shouldn't be taking 16 shots. Kyle Filipowski took 16 shots. Jeremy Roach took 11 shots. Mark Mitchell took 16 shots. Everyone else was 8 or fewer. He needs to be in that efficient 8 or fewer range where, if you're going 5 for 8, of course, it's much better than 5 for 16. But also when you start shooting and you miss, shoot or shoot to try and get out of that. And in his mindset is to get that confidence back. He wants to shoot more. And that's not what we need him in the offense. I think the offense didn't give him, or at least the defense didn't show him enough room to do 16 shots. I think that's where me and you were kind of on the same page of, I'd like to see him take fewer shots, but be more efficient with them, especially down in the lane. And again, going for dunks, lay-ins, things like that, or things where he can go to the free throw line, where he was a lot better tonight than he has been recently. So I don't know what it is. It must be just a confidence block in him that's making him try to shoot his way out of it. But that's not necessarily his game. And for one, and for two, I think even the threes that he's taking, I don't mind the threes that are being taken. He's just not making it all. Like, what has he made? 1 or 2 all year. And again, that's not going to be his game. He needs to focus on getting to the spots where he knows he has a higher percentage of victory.
Yeah, you ready for the number, man? Mark Mitchell on the season, 1 of 17. 1
there you go. Yeah.
for 17 from 3. That's 0.59%, Donald. Woo!
That's
6%.
Again, that's
like 6% from 3-point range. And he's shooting 6%. He took 3 3-pointers in this game. That is confidence. That's confidence, but I'm not sure it's justified.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I don't mind.
Shot.
Like I said, I don't mind the confidence. I think that's just not his game. His game, like, if I'm sitting there, look, I'm a guy who, my best friend would joke, like, I used to hit threes from 40 feet. I used to be like 55% from 30 feet or further. I used to nail them, but layups I just couldn't do. So you know what I did? I kept my butt out of the paint. I stayed on the 3-point line and I kept shooting threes because that was my game. So I'm hoping for him to try and, again, take these 8 days to try and find the spots on the floor where he knows that the percentage of shot of him making is going to be in the 50 to 60% range as opposed to the 5 to 6% range.
Yeah. Hey, as we continue with the bad, I have to cite our bench, and Jalen Blakes had another really, really nice game. Jalen Blakes knows his spots. He knows, just 2 for 2, only took 2 shots. He's playing hard defense out there the whole time. He's, putting in work, as you mentioned, playing defense against guys who are bigger than him when Duke goes to that 4-guard lineup. But the rest of the bench, non-existent. TJ Power actually got in the game pretty early, but didn't do anything, and then didn't come back in until very, very late in the contest. Basically didn't play while it was a competitive game in the second half. Duke only played 6 guys. Sean Stewart came in very late. Spencer Hubbard came in very late. TJ Power came in very late. Ryan Young only plays 2 minutes in this game. Yeah, I think a lot of what happened in this contest was because Hofstra, we talked about the fact Hofstra's not a big team, not tall and not particularly wide. And by the way, that's something that the fact that they are not physically strong is something that Kyle Filipowski took advantage of all day long. He was just going through those guys like they weren't even there. That poor guy who was 215 pounds trying to guard Kyle Filipowski. He did not have fun guarding Kyle. But I think that as a result of us playing a team that was smaller, guys like Young, guys like Sean Stewart, even to some extent guys like TJ Power, they just weren't necessary. And Duke, look, I think Duke would, if Duke can play small, they'd prefer to play small. Like Duke's best players, honestly, other than Kyle Filipowski and maybe Mark Mitchell, are all smaller guys. So that's kind of where the team skews. So we played an opponent that would allow us to play small. We did play small, but we, in the interest of fairness, we need to mention that the bench provided very, very little in this contest. 4 points from Jalen Blakes, 2 points from TJ Power. That's it. Not many rebounds, not much of anything other than like Sean Stewart picked up a couple fouls. That's why he didn't have a 2 trillion.
Yeah, you know what? And it's funny you mentioned the fouls. We only had 11 fouls as a team. So there wasn't any foul trouble. Like you mentioned, Sean Stewart had 2 of them. So it was really from the people who played for most of the game. There was only 9 fouls between the 6 or 7 guys that played the bulk of the minutes. And so that's not something where you're going to see guys really, rotate around and things like that. I will mention, I think you have to mention the bad just because of the number, but I'm going to hedge it a little bit. We had 10 turnovers and Caleb Foster had 3 and Flip had 7. Now,
that's a big number.
Now, here's the thing. There was a couple of Flip turnovers that were bad, right? There was the one to start the second half where he threw it into the Cameron Crazies. And to be fair, the Cameron Crazies are the 6th man. So he was just passing to his teammate.
But look, it was clear that he and McCain had a miscommunication.
And immediately, Jerry McCain came over and was like, hey, next one, we're good. It didn't feel like.
By the way, really quick, I also think a couple of his turnovers were passes that he made to Mark Mitchell, where Mitchell didn't catch them, and I was like, I think that may have been on Mark more than it wasn't. But Flip, if the pass didn't get caught, it's on the guy who threw the pass.
It's on the guy who passed it. Yes.
Work. But I saw him throw one of them that Mitchell missed, and his Flip turned up and came running up the court. I swear I read his lips saying, "Catch the effing ball."
Yeah. And I think, again, like you said, remain cool with himself. Yeah, he had a couple of times where he was like, probably said something to himself or just, out of frustration, but he stayed within himself. Again, I didn't think that he had that many turnovers because I didn't think his play was that bad. It wasn't sloppy play. Like you said, it was probably passes that weren't caught. There was the one errant pass to start the second half, and there was one where he got the ball taken from him early in the game. And at that point, he was like, nah, I'm just going to go through these guys. That way they can't take the ball from me. So the number needs to come down, but I'm not necessarily worried about Cal Filipowski having 7 turnovers tonight.
Hey, so my last thing I have in the bad, and then you tell me if you want to wrap or if we got anything else to mention. I thought Duke, especially in the first half, did a very, very poor job of identifying where Darlin Stone Dunbar was, because my man was just raining threes down on the Blue Devils. And look, I know he's not the guy that he is their second leading scorer. And he's a guy who shoots a fair number of 3-pointers, but he's not the guy that you're like, oh, we need to focus our defensive efforts on him. We were focused on Tyler Thomas, and we did an excellent job on Tyler Thomas. But you can't, when a guy's once he hit like 3 of those, maybe adjust your defense just a little tiny bit so that you're not leaving him open to hit the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. My man was 7 of 11 from 3-point range. That's a lot of 7 is a lot of 3-pointers. And he kept them not just close. Hofstra had the lead throughout a fair percentage of that first half. And it largely was on the back of the outstanding shooting of Darlin Stone Dunbar. And, again, if we're in the bad, I need my Blue Devils to recognize when a guy is sizzling and try and cool him off a little bit.
And I think what was frustrating about him in particular was that it felt like every time we made a good play or we ended up having a 3 or an and one or something like that, he would answer every single time, it felt like, in the first half. There was a point, I think he was matching, or did he match at halftime? He matched Flip's 17 points that he had. And it just felt like every time Flip came down, it was like, oh, Flip made a good play. We're about to turn this corner. I'm about to, go pedal to the metal. Come down and hit some circus shot, and you're like, man, like somebody stop him. Then he hit a couple that were open, and I think that's when John Schauer called the timeout, and we're like, let's go. But that's all I had on the bad. But Jason, real quick before we wrap, this is the only game this week, so we got to do Player of the Week.
No. So here's my plan, man. What we're going to do is, because we're going to come back tomorrow and talk more about this game, we're going to do Player of the Game and Player of the Week tomorrow. We're saving that.
Okay, so
give him a little something. Give him a little something. Give him a little something for tomorrow. The other thing we're gonna have tomorrow, by the way, I'm teasing. This is me teasing, my friend. I'm gonna talk about Fran Fraschilla, because I got some comments about what Fran Fraschilla was like in this game. Look, we're all out there. We're all looking for the great color commentator. I'm just gonna tell you right now, I thought Fran Fraschilla was outstanding in this game. We're gonna talk about that tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Also for everyone out there, I'm gonna be able to take a look at Jason's notes. So he can't copy off of me this time, like he normally does. So I'm going to look at him, and I think for Player of the Week, we're going to have the same thing. Those notes are going to be very, very short. But I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'm looking forward to, again, recapping all this. I know tomorrow we're going to be talking a little bit of football, because I know Riley Leonard today announced that he was going to Notre Dame. We'll talk about that tomorrow as well.
Yep. So that's going to do it for the latest edition of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Donald, thank you for joining me. Have a safe flight tomorrow from DC down to Atlanta. The two of us will be here tomorrow afternoon on the same microphone. It's going to be magic. We're going to be spitting on each other.
Casa de Evans. I get to see it.
Yeah, Casa de Evans. Until then, Donald, Jason, and this is the Duke Band. Playing us out, taking us home to victory.